Okay, thank you all for coming today. If you live in eastern North Carolina or have just moved here, you will or have experienced a hurricane. How it develops is amazing, but it can be a very dangerous storm. A hurricane is one of the most violent storms on our planet and is often referred to as the one-eyed monster. Before we begin talking about how hurricanes form, I want to give some brief information on hurricanes. I am sure we all have heard of hurricane, a cyclone, or a typhoon. Well, these three storms are all the same, but they are in different parts of our world. All three of these storms fall into a category of a tropical cyclone. And as you can see on here, they're called different names depending on where they are located. One piece of information I found very interesting is that storms located below the equator will turn in a clockwise position, and those located above the equator will turn in a counterclockwise position. And this is because of the Earth on its axis and how it rotates according to NASA. Now, we have heard of have you ever heard of a hurricane hitting Alaska? They don't, and there's a reason for that. Hurricanes develop in the summer months and are always near the equator. In our hemisphere, hurricane season runs from 1 June to 30 November, and that is because this is a month when the ocean water are its warmest and the tropical air is at its highest. So how do hurricanes form? In order for a hurricane to form, there must be certain conditions present. One of the most important conditions is warm air. Another is moist air. When you have these two conditions, hurricanes can form over the ocean surface. We should have some knowledge to the extent and understand that warm air rises, and as it rises, it's replaced by cooler air, so it's kind of like a continuous process. Therefore, we have the ocean surface, and that is approximately, it has to be about 81 degrees in order for a hurricane to be able to form, which causes evaporation from the sun. As evaporation occurs, clouds of warm, moist air are pushed up. Well, when we have moist air and it starts to rise at a rapid pace, it will be replaced by cooler air. So warm air, cooler air, and it just keeps going up, the process keeps going over and over, and more moisture begins to build. Because the air continues to rise, it causes a circulation and forms a center, which is considered the eye, but we'll discuss that more in depth later. Now, with all the rising of warm air and the lowering of cooler air that is eventually warmed, it starts to build a circulation. So it's going up, and it starts to circulate. If the speed builds up enough, these conditions continue to grow, and a hurricane will form. If there's not enough, and it's at a slower pace, it'll just be a little storm, or it eventually will disappear. So as the warm air continues to build, and it will move in a circular pattern, kind of like how a tornado twists, that's what a hurricane will do. And this whole process can take from days to hours to form. So now we have moisture and we have clouds. They're all starting to spin in a circular formation. This is when the eye of the storm is formed. This is a part of the storm that is very calm and can be deceiving, because when it's passing over, people think that the storm is gone, but really it's only the middle. So according to NASA, the most violent it actually takes place immediately around the eye, and it's called the eye wall. So we have a picture here, and this will be the eye. So everything outside of there is considered the most dangerous parts of the storm. So all the clouds around there, they're called the rain bands. And the bigger they are, the more rain there'll be. And when they hit landfall, they cause a lot of havoc. So in order for formation to be considered a hurricane, it has to be over 74 miles an hour. So this is just the first category of a level of the hurricanes. There are 5 levels. The greatest of the hurricanes is a Category 5, and it reaches 155 miles an hour. The science website How Stuff Works says, over the course of a millennia, 80 to 100 storms will form, and the reputation of the hurricanes are known as destroyers. And out of these 80 and 100 storms that form, many of them will die out and before they can grow strong enough. Eventually, over half of them will turn into hurricanes. Hurricanes can take many different paths. If you have been around during a hurricane season and watched the news, you will see the projected paths that a hurricane will take. These storms can be very unpredictable, and it's very important that you watch the news if a hurricane is coming your way. Lastly, I want to give you a little information on an infamous storm that hit the United States in August of 2005. Hurricane Katrina hit the Gulf Coast and is one of the deadliest hurricanes to hit landfall. Kim Zimmerman, the author of Hurricane Katrina, Facts, Damage, and Aftermath, tells us that a total of 1,836 people died during this hurricane, and the flooding that followed in the late of August of 2005, and millions of others were left homeless along the Gulf Coast and New Orleans. This storm was considered a Category 4 hurricane, which means it had winds of 135 to 155 miles per hour. This storm passed through Florida and eventually was reduced to a tropical storm. But once Hurricane Katrina was back over in the ocean waters, she began to build up again to a Category 3 hurricane, and once again hit the Gulf Coast in Louisiana for a second time in only a few days. Now that we understand how hurricanes work and why they form and what happens during a hurricane, we can be more prepared. Although we can be prepared enough to withstand the devastation we have learned from Hurricane Katrina, hurricanes are deemed one of the most dangerous storms on our planet and should never be taken lightly. Thank you.